Welcome to the podcast where passion and purpose collide. We are on a mission to interview women and the occasional token man about how their passion and purpose have collided to create healthy relationships and profitable businesses. I'm Elizabeth Denham of the Franchise Woman magazine, and I'm here with Rebecca Monet, Chief Scientist of Zoracle Profiles. We start the show off each week with roses and thorns of our weeks. And Rebecca, you have one lined up for us. What is it?
Oh, I have 2 or 3 thorns in my life.
Oh no, a thorny week, huh?
It's been a very thorny week. I don't know what's going on, if there's moon blips going on. But the one that's kind of the most notable to me was someone who attempted to sell us a training package to become better at marketing on LinkedIn. And I know if you've been in business anytime at all, you're getting thousands of these folks that reach out to you on LinkedIn saying, we can help you with LinkedIn and we can help you get leads and all of those kinds of things. So this was someone that reached out. My sales guy spent some time with her initially, and then there was a second meeting where I was brought in. And Elizabeth, I swear to you, I'm in the software business. I'm somewhat technically savvy. I've been around the block a few times. I had no clue what she was saying. She would string some words together. There was no like commas or periods, or it was just a bunch of words that were all convoluted, never a complete sentence. And even when you thought you kind of understood where she was going or what she was talking about, I could not figure out for the life of me. But all I could tell you is she used a lot of the word this and that. So it was kind of a word that encased everything. When she would talk about this or that, somehow in her mind, I guess she was seeing something. And after about 20 minutes where I kept asking questions to hone her in and try to get more specific with her, and she couldn't answer a direct question and would go all over the place, I finally thought, well, if Phil set up a second appointment, there must be something here, and I'm just not getting it, that I must be just stupid, even though I don't consider myself stupid at all. And finally, at the end, I said to her, I've asked many questions and I still don't have a clue what you're selling. I don't have a clue what the end result is. I don't have a clue what the offer is. And I desperately want to know. And
you're still hanging on for that answer.
I'm a scientist. I'm curious, right? So anyway, I said, I tell you what, why don't you give me the names of 2 or 3 companies that are using you, and then I'll reach out to them and see exactly how what you are selling they're using in their business. And her answer was, we don't give out customer names or customer testimonials. And I'm like, I'm sorry. That was like a red flag. Like you wouldn't, I mean, no way. I would, if my potential clients need a referral to other franchisors that are using our tool, they're going to get a list of 40 people if they want it, right? And I want them to talk to my clients, and I want them to tell how they're using it. But this was someone who flat out said, we don't do testimonials, and we don't give customer names. And I said, well, I'm sorry, I have no, you're going to have to communicate better then, because I don't have an idea what you do. Anyway, long story short.
That's not even a real person. Who would say something like that trying to sell you something?
I couldn't believe it. She basically said, well, a certain amount of business has to be based on trust. And if you're not comfortable taking a little bit of a risk, and if you're not comfortable in the unknown, then, maybe this isn't right for you. I said, I want to know, but you're not telling me what it is.
Well, evidently it was all your fault, Rebecca. Your expectations were too high and you didn't understand what she was saying.
Obviously. Later, she sent an email to my sales guy, and my sales guy forwarded, he goes, do you have any clue what she's talking about? I said, I've never known I read word for word. I have no idea how she put these, she was either snorting something or, or something. I don't know what was going on, but I couldn't make sense out of 2 paragraphs of things, and he couldn't make sense. And finally, she sends me, when I couldn't figure out what she was saying, she ends up sending me a note directly, wanting to know if I was ready to buy. And same thing, it was just this rambling kind of stuff. And I finally said, I think we've decided to go a different direction. And she got super upset and wanted to know why, what she did wrong. And part of me goes, you wouldn't be able to understand.
No, you can't communicate effectively.
No, the issue here is not your product, because I don't even know what it is. The issue here is you're the worst communicator I've ever spoken to.
Not saying a lot, because you've spoken to a lot of people.
At my age, I've spoken to a lot of people.
That is pretty funny. Well, I hope you have a good thorn to make up for that annoying, a
good rose, yeah.
For your annoying thorn.
Well, the rose, Elizabeth, is one that I've been kind of dealing with the last year or two, is becoming more and more conscious of how precious time is, how precious our time is. And I know I'm much older than you, so it's even more precious because I have less time. But so to me, it was understanding that we had just wasted an hour of time, 2 hours, including, my sales guy's time, and 2 emails, and something that I should have been able to notice within just a couple of minutes, where I should have probably called that meeting to a halt and said, you know what, I think you're talking Chinese and I don't speak Chinese, so could you get me somebody else to speak to? So it just, the rose is another acknowledgement that our time is precious and that we need to use it wisely. And in that situation, I did not use my time wisely, but I'm going to be more cautious in the future.
Yeah, I think that's good. And that's something you realize as it's happening. Like, what I am not using my time wisely, but I'm so far in, I can't get back. What do I do now? I can't get out of this.
I'm in the quicksand. What do I do? Well, and my curiosity got the better of me. I'm like, surely she's saying something intelligent. Surely one of these sentences makes sense. And so I was so desperate to understand that I kept getting, like, okay, I'm just going to keep asking questions till she tells me something. But anyway, so tell me about your roses and thorns.
Well, I've had a little bit of a thorny week too. Sometimes I can't think of a thorn, which is a good week. And this one I had to whittle them down to the best thorn, I guess. My thorn of the week has to do with my senior in high school, who I had to tell the other day has to go to virtual school. And, he's not taking it well. I don't think anyone would. But I just can't take a chance. The state of Alabama's had record numbers almost every day. Our hospitals are overflowing, and I'm just not willing to send him out as the guinea pig. I'm going to let the other kids whose parents are sending them see how it goes. And if everything starts to improve or it's not as bad as we think, then I'll let him go. But it's a tough week. There's a lot of things going on in the world. It's hard not to get down about it. I haven't been overly frustrated with being isolated because I Zoom a lot with you when we've interviewed and I have engagement. But it is hard on a family, and it's hard on a kid of all different ages. And then as a parent, you're struggling to make the right choices and decisions. And it's just a heavy burden to make those decisions and then disappoint your child. Even though he knows intellectually we're doing it to keep him safe, the 17-year-old in him is having a hard time accepting it. So that's been a pretty big thorn this week.
What's a big thorn on many levels?
I think a lot of people are struggling with this very decision right now.
Oh, I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine what he's going through. Mm-hmm. And then as a mama bear, having to protect him, but at the same time knowing the situation's out of control. There's nothing you can do. It's not what you want to do. Right. You're feeling like you have to do.
Well, that's exactly it. And he's so frustrated, and at one point was taking it out on me. And I just said, I get that you're mad. I said, I am not a big crier, and I have shed tears over this because I know what it means to you. But don't get mad at me. Get mad at, people who don't wear a mask, or people who are making decisions difficult for you and for us, and just the situation. It's hard to even know where to direct anger sometimes, but you have it. So channeling that into something healthier and better as he moves through this process, I think is going to be helpful for him.
And hopefully he goes through that, because he's going to go through a natural mourning process. He's going to
Yeah.
miss his friends, and this last year of school, he's going to go through a grieving process. Of course, he's going to be mad, you know.
Yeah, it's maddening, and but there's nothing we can do about it right this second. So we've just all got to kind of get through it together as best we can.
Grin and
But
bear it.
yeah, it is. But there are always roses to be found in the week, and I think this week's rose, as you know, Rebecca and I are working on a project outside of the podcast that's going to be pretty exciting for us, and I've talked to some people who are going to tell me some stories. And the thing that I've always found gratefulness in is, as someone who likes to tell stories and is a writer, that people are so willing to do it and share private before now, private personal stories about overcoming or a struggle that they've had, that they've navigated and are in a better place from. And I talked to someone who goes to our church who's had some trouble with her daughter and addiction. And it's a very personal, very private thing. And she said, I have found that by talking about it, other people say, well, I went through this, or I'm going through that now, or here's how we navigated that. And you're not as alone as you think you are. And I think when it's a child, and I think what's an addiction, there's so much stigma around it. But the more people talk about it, the less stigmatized it becomes. She clearly didn't raise a child to make bad choices. Nobody does, even if you make mistakes. So sharing that experience with other parents and saying, here are some solutions we found, or, money is always an issue when you're trying to get someone help, and there are gaps in the system in terms of who can afford what care. And so anyway, my rose is that I'm grateful for people who are so willing to trust me and us with their stories, because I think that those things can be life-changing for the people who are watching. And if one less person feels alone, then it's valuable. So that happened several times this week, where people have agreed to tell me some personal truths and share stories so that other people don't feel so alone. And I never, ever discount that or minimize it. It's a big deal for someone to do that.
It is a big deal to share your heart like that. And those of you that are listening in, what Elizabeth is hinting at is a project we are working on called The Gift of the Struggle. So these are stories that we are hoping will help other people, women in particular, by stories being told that maybe we can relate to and we can understand. So I hopefully you don't mind me kind of sharing with that.
Absolutely not. And if someone has something like that they want to share, typically it's in hindsight. You've been through something and you don't see the gift or the lesson that you're learning during it, but afterward you can look back and say, this is what I've been able to do because of that, or this is what I have achieved because of that, or this is how I've helped someone else because of that. Feel free to reach out to us and let us know, because you may be featured coming up. So you can email us at ask@beckandliz.com. If you have a story that you would like to share, we would love to hear about it. So glad
Exciting.
you put that plug in there.
Yay! All right. So that wraps up our Roses and Thorns section. Join us again next week for some more Roses and Thorns.
All right. We will see you next time. Welcome back to Where Passion and Purpose Collide. We are excited this week to have two very special guests who are both women in a male-dominated industry. Rebecca, why don't you introduce our first guest?
Oh my gosh, yeah, I'm very excited about this interview and having both of these ladies. So I'm going to introduce Sheri Granger. Hi, Sheri. So Sheri was born in Chicago, Illinois, and she went to Columbia College in Chicago and studied sound engineering and worked at a few recording studios throughout Chicago. Then she got this wild hair one day at 26 to move to Melbourne, Florida, and she got into the medical field doing office work. She lived there for 15 years, had a son. His name is Eric. And then they decided to move back to Chicago so her son could be around family. And then one day, Sheri met her future husband, Bill. The two got married, by Elvis Presley in Las Vegas. And then Bill, of course, adopted Eric. And then one day, Sheri and her husband took a trip back to Florida, and she just sort of mentioned to Bill that she would love to move back to Florida one day. And then it was, this is like after 25 years of being in the medical field. And then one day, Bill had this wild hair idea, and he approached Sheri, and he says, "What do you think about owning our own franchise?" So they looked at a whole bunch of different options. They looked at gyms, they looked at coffee shops, they looked at garage door repair, and also auto repair. And being that Bill was a master technician for 20 years when he lived in New York and Indiana, Sheri felt very comfortable with the auto industry. Now, I'm not going to tell any more of her story because I want Sheri to tell that story, but suffice it to say, Sheri loves working side by side with her husband, Bill, in their Mr. Transmission shop. You're in Bradenton, is that right?
Bradenton, Florida, yes.
Bradenton, Florida. So welcome, Sheri.
Thank you.
And I am going to introduce our second guest, Susan Trumble. Born in Kentucky, Susan grew up in northern Kentucky, just south of Cincinnati. She's a proud summa cum laude graduate from Cincinnati Technical College with a business degree. Owner of a Mr. Transmission Center in Florence, Kentucky for over 25 years. She has a successful 6-bay repair facility staffed with experienced technicians, most of whom have been employed for at least 20 years. She is extremely proud to be the 2017 Franchise of the Year recognized in Washington, D.C. She's the recipient of the Better Business Bureau's 25-year accreditation award, and has also received a total of 19 years Award of Excellence from her parent company, Marin Industries. She's a well-established repair facility known in the greater Cincinnati and northern Kentucky area. She's known for honesty, professionalism, and satisfaction and loyalty from her customers. So welcome to you, Susan.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So we want to get to know a little bit about each of you before we really get into questions. So Susan, can you give us an overview of your career path and how you got to Mr. Transmission?
Okay, so my story is probably a little bit different, but my father actually started the franchise here. It's been over 30 years ago. And I was a flight attendant for American Airlines. And I was on vacation. This has been many years ago. On vacation for 2 weeks. They were short-staffed here. They needed somebody to answer phones. And I volunteered and spent 2 weeks here. I never went back to the airlines. It just clicked. I loved it. I can honestly say at first my father did not want me here. He thought it was a male dominant, industry. And, but it just worked. I felt extremely comfortable and I thrived. So after being here for a year, working with the current center manager that he had, we did some changes and I took over the shop. So I ended up buying the shop from my father over 25 years ago. And my father wasn't here all the time. He had other interests, but I did get to work with him for over 25 years, almost on a daily basis. And like I said, I've owned the shop for over 25 years. This is I love doing what I do. I've got a fantastic crew. I would not have the success that I have if it wasn't for the crew that I have here. I owe a lot of thanks to them. I really, truly do. I have 2 techs that have been with me for over 25 years, and I'm grateful for what they bring to this business. Just a lot of loyalty from them. It's definitely a work family.
Yeah.
It is.
It's definitely a business that requires a team. It's not like you're going to do the auto mechanics. It requires a solid team. So hopefully we can talk a little bit more about how you built that team and empower them. So Sheri, over to you. Your path was also an unusual one into franchising, coming from engineering and the medical background, and then ultimately the auto repair, auto care business. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that journey?
Yep. Well, you summed it up a lot. I started off as an engineer and then 25 years in the medical business. So that was a big switch from the medical business to the auto. When I first started working here, I used to call all the customers patients. So Bill used to always say, you're going to offend somebody by calling them a patient. But then the more I got into it, I figured, okay, there's still a diagnosis. We're diagnosing the car instead of the patient, of course, the patient. So it's getting a lot easier. I've been here a little bit more than a year and learned a lot. Moran has helped me a lot. Before I started here, they sent me on training, different shops where I shadowed them for weeks, 2 different shops, and took classes there and did online videos. So I was still unsure starting. I guess I'm the type of person you got to throw right in and do it to learn. So I've gotten much better at it. So yeah, I love working with Bill. He's out in the garage a lot, and I manage the front area. And then when I need help still, I'm able to go back there, and the guys that we have working for us now are great. So I could have called to them for help also, and it's working out good.
Oh, that is so exciting. So both of you coming from kind of crazy diverse backgrounds, ending up in franchising, and seeming to take to it like duck to water. But it's what's interesting to me, and Elizabeth and I were talking about this earlier, that it requires incredible adaptability to go from something so different to being thrown in the deep end of the pool in something of this nature. Do you consider yourself adaptable, flexible, I can learn anything type of people?
I think so, yeah. I mean, if you're around something, you have no choice but to pick it up, and knowing that this is it now, this is my career, you know, you want to learn it too. You want to know more. I was actually thinking of going to get my ASEs and service writing. So that's something I'm going to try for in the future, maybe in a couple months, take the test, do some studying just to better myself. But yeah, it's working good.
Yeah. How about you, Susan? Do you consider yourself a flexible, adaptable? Do you like change? I mean, this was huge, going from the airline industry into running a transmission shop.
It was a huge change. It really, truly was. But I just thrived. Working with customers, working with the techs, problem solving. I just really, truly enjoyed the interactions with the customers, with the parts suppliers, the whole gamut. It just really worked for me. I set out on leave for 2 years from the airlines, afraid to cut that cord, because that was a really great job as a flight attendant. But it was a big decision to really finally make that final decision to leave. But I made the best decision for me. I really, truly did. I've enjoyed my years here at this shop. I can honestly say I wake up every morning ready and happy to come to work. I do. I mean, there's stressful days just like there is in any career path or any job you have. But all in all, this is where I want to be. I definitely made the right decision.
So cool. So cool. I don't know if I would be that much of that adaptable.
I was younger then.
Oh,
That's got a lot to do with it. I don't know if I would feel that way today at my age, if I would be as ready to make that change, but I was at that time.
Yeah. I think there's some truth to that. That when we're younger, we're more capable of just taking a detour or going a different path than later. But this is definitely something that both of you have taken to, quite well. I mean, Sheri, 25 years in the medical field. We're talking a successful career, and then making this huge shift. It's just amazing.
I was ready for it. I was ready to get out of the medical field and needed to change. I think I've worked everything. I've worked at the front desk. I've done MA. I've worked for hospitals and surgery centers with anesthesia. So I feel like I was just tired of it. Things were changing with the insurance companies. They weren't, as easily to get things paid, and just tired of fighting. But yeah, I was 50 when I'm 51 now. So I started later on in life too, but I figure, I got about another 15 years and I'll retire and ready for it.
Well, I think it's fantastic that you get to work with your husband.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that you're working together at. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's good. We kind of know what to expect from each other. We know each other's weaknesses. We tried having a manager. I think it was a little bit too soon. It seemed like things worked smoother when it was just the two of us up here.
Well, I think coming from these different perspectives, Susan, you've been in this industry for a while now, and as a newer person, Sheri, I wanted to sort of touch on what your experience as women in this industry. And I think coming into something when you're 50, Sheri, this is an assumption, you correct me if I'm wrong, you've got a lot of experience behind you to have confidence that you can do something new, I would think. And Susan, you were younger when you did it, so I wonder if it took you a while to earn that confidence, to build it as you went, and to feel like you had authority in terms of being a female leader in a male-dominated industry. So if the two of you could kind of speak to those experiences, I think it's an interesting perspective.
Yeah, I think, like you said, when you're in a position, I pick things up. When I worked at a chiropractor before, it was totally new. It was still the medical field, but after a year, I kind of had all the codes down. And the same as with this, it's a different industry, but the common things, you're always going to be polite to your customers. You're always going to, if you don't know the answer, hold on, I will find out. I will get back to you. Always follow through. When I tell somebody I'm going to call them back, I always do. So it's kind of common sense things that go with any position that you're in.
I had a lot of experience with customer service, being a flight attendant, and just helping people. A genuine desire to help people, and people feel that. They know that. They know when you're there or here to help them, and you're genuinely concerned about their vehicle and their repair and getting them back on the road, and making sure it's safe, and just that the repair runs smooth, and it gains confidence of your customers and yourself. The customer service background that I had with the airlines really helped me a lot.
So those are transferable skills, and skills that you learned whether you're in the medical field, in terms of service and kindness and follow through and diagnose the problem and solve the problem. Same way in the airline industry, there were things that you had already mastered that you could then just apply to a completely different role, different business altogether. So these are transferable skills. And I think that's very, very important to remember. No matter where we come from, there are things that we've already learned and already mastered and already enjoy doing, that it almost doesn't matter what business we go into. Those are things we can still use. It's not like we're starting from scratch, right?
Right.
Or a clean slate. We're starting from a basis of wisdom and knowledge and experiences that we can then bring in. We might have to adapt to the environment and a different business model and a different type of customer. But there are a lot of things that you already brought in.
So in
Wow.
terms of credibility, because I think we as women are often very confident in what we know how to do and how and the things that you're bringing to the table already, even if you're in a new position. But I would imagine you would have had to earn some credibility among your customers, among your techs, and among the people who generally come in the car repair business. I mean, how did you make the transition, and did you have any bumps in the road in terms of people not finding you credible or asking to speak to a man, or who's in charge, not thinking you guys were in charge, you gals, I should say. Have you had any of those experiences, and how did you handle those things?
You know, I have had a couple of phone calls where, you know, they'd like to talk to the man, and, you know, I just say, you know what, he's busy right now. I can help you. You know, just be forward, let them know that, yes, there is a man involved. I'm not working on your car, but I do know things, and I can find out if I don't know. You know, so I don't know everything, and I'm going to be in a much better position next year and be more confident than I am now. So it's a growing thing. I think as the longer it goes, the better I'm going to get. Yeah, I just kind of, you know, if you want to deal with Milex Mr. Transmission in Bradenton, then you're going to have to talk to me. If not, then there's other places. If you're
Go
dead
somewhere
set
else.
having a man only, then yeah, you could go down the street.
Yeah, good for you. What about you, Susan?
I think it's so very important to gain the customer's confidence when they first come in the door or your first encounter on the telephone. I do have Brian, a manager here who works my front desk. We kind of work it together. It does help. A lot of people think we're married, and he's happily married, and so am I. And a lot of people think that I'm the secretary. There's some people who would prefer, of course, to talk to a man. And I had one instance where I let a gentleman walk out the door. Brian was not here that day. My builders he was on the bench busy, and this man really insisted on talking to a man. And I honestly, I did not accommodate him because he was very rude about it. Mm-hmm. And that's the one and only time I can ever remember that ever happening. But you know, in your conversation that we are having with people, whether or not you're gaining their trust, you read your customer, you read your feedback. You know what direction to go with your conversation, what's working, if you need to make small talk or if you definitely need to stay on the technical level. You learn that, and it just generally works. I think a big part of it is showing that you're generally concerned about their car and their repair, and letting them know that you are here definitely to help them. It's huge.
Yeah, I like that attitude. I long time ago in my 20s, I ran a combination of a co-op, farmers co-op, and a home center, and so it was 99% male customers. And initially, got similar responses as what you had, which was, I'm a contractor, I'm a carpenter, I want to talk to a man, or I'm a farmer, I want to talk to a man. But in time, like you said, when you show sincere concern and knowledge, then the gender issue appears to kind of
I think women have a better ability to show a genuine care than what men do. I just my personal opinion. I think we bring that to the table better than what they do. I just what I think. Yes.
What do you think, Sheri? Uh-oh, we lost your microphone.
Let me unmute her. Hold on. There we
go. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see where women, you know, do come across more gentle, not as this is how it is. And, we're more open-minded. We listen more. Most of the time I'll ask a question, sit back and let them talk. And I just write everything down, repeat everything so they know I am listening. And I always try to get them to come in, get to bring your vehicle in and let the technicians look at it, and they will take it from here. My job is to get them in the door and have them trust. If there's a concern or anything, we'll address that. You'll get to talk to the technician. I always follow up with everybody after their appointment. About 2 or 3 days, I'll call just to make sure everything is good. And I think that builds a lot of trust with them, because we're not, oh, the job's done, bye, later. I call them and say, were you happy with your services? Is there anything we need to address? And most of the time, they're thrilled that I called, and, that's brings them back.
Wow. It's interesting that you say that follow-up is just as important as that front end, listening well, taking notes, making sure they feel like they're heard and they're understood. But that back end, I have a dentist who does that. I've never had any major work done, but every single time I go in, he will call. Now, he will call when he knows I'm in the office, and it's always a voice message. He will call and check in. And I wouldn't think about going to anyone else, simply because he's the first individual that's ever done. Are you happy? What's going on? Is there anything else I can do for you? Hope you're unnumbed now, or whatever it is. You're doing the same thing with a person's car. This is something they want to feel safe about, and they want to know that you really do care. So that follow-up is powerful.
Yep.
I agree. Definitely.
Wow. So as women business owners, it sounds like you've kind of worked out this, how to deal with the customer, how to build that trust, how to build that empathy, how to listen, all of that stuff. What about with your technicians? Are they dominantly men, and how do you interact with them? It's not like both of you are technically savvy. It's not like you're going to get in there and mess with the car, right? I mean, Susan, talk to me about that. How are you perceived by your employees, your technicians, and are there any kind of issues there, or is it all just peaches and cream?
I think there's a huge mutual respect. No, I don't. I've torn down transmissions on the bench before. I have done that just to gain my knowledge early on. I will go out and scan vehicles. I do know how to do that. Generally, that's not what I do. Usually I leave that up to the techs, but I've got 2 techs who've been with me for over 25 years. We are genuinely a work family. They've become more like brothers to me. It's very much on a professional level, but there still is just a mutual respect for each other. I've not employed another female here. I had thought about it before I hired a manager, but I was a little apprehensive of having 2 females in the office for really fear of overloading a man coming in the door and seeing 2 females and not having a man here. So I nixed that idea. I know a few people have said to me, you definitely need to look at that, but I don't know that the world's quite ready for that yet. I think that might be a little much, but I have thought about it. But I have a great group of techs. I would not have the success in my business that I have if it wasn't for them. And I let them know that. They know that. They know they are appreciated for what they do. And it's a professional atmosphere, but it's a very friendly atmosphere amongst the employees. Very, very professional, but very relaxed. Mutual respect. It's huge.
Wow. Sheri, being new, a year in, and you're also working with your husband, your business partner. How does that work with your technicians and other employees?
Well, I know he's always got my back. So if they ever said no, and we have had technicians before that were I'm doing this and that's it, don't pull me away. And they didn't last too long. So the group we have now are good, where I can go up to them and they kind of know everything before we started, before they were hired. This is how we work. And if you're in the middle of a job and we need you to be pulled off and do something else, you're going to have to do it. It's not just one job. And the guys now are good. But like I said, we have had technicians that had a little bit of an attitude. And I think when we took over, it was an existing business. So everybody was already set in their ways. And the two owners left and Bill and I came in. So for a while, it didn't seem like it was our shop. It felt like we were just in, there. And it really wasn't fun coming to work then, and things got better once they left and we hired people who had knew what we wanted for our shop. They are in this, it seems like, just as much as we are. They want the customers to be happy. They will go out of their way for them. Now the staff we have is great. I have no complaints with them, but Bill's got my back too. So I know if they give me a hard time, it's like, Bill.
He's a warrior.
Yes.
So
And him being a technician helps too, because, they could tell you anything, and him not knowing, he could walk up and say, yes, you're right. No, you're not right. Try this. So that helps us a lot also.
That's great. And I think it is just finding the right people. Sometimes makes all the difference in the world, not only in your joy to go to work, but just in your ability to lead well. You have to have good people to lead well, don't you think? So that kind of leads me to the question, which I think might be the final question for both of you, is this issue in the Franchise Woman magazine, we're talking about success and how people define that and what it means, because everybody has a very individual idea of what that means in their lives. So Sheri, why don't you start us off? How do you define success, and have you achieved it yet?
I think probably we're getting there. To me, success is somebody leaving here and telling their friends, and them come in and say, my neighbor told me about your shop. And I think, wow, they're saying something good about us and they're recommending us. So right there, they trust us enough not only to fix their car, but to say to somebody else, go there, because they will do it. So that when that started happening, I thought, this is just going to keep spiraling. More and more people are going to tell more and more people. And I mean, it's been good. It's a slow start, but now I see it happening more and more. So if it keeps going like this, I think we'll be doing great.
Great. That's a great definition. I love that definition of success. Susan, what would you say?
When I think about success, I look at it from two different views. Success on my personal level is feeling good about the service that I provide for the customers, but also feeling comfortable, happy, liking what I'm doing, respected from people in the community. But then the other view is the success from the business point. We've been at it for over 30 years. Our main customers come from word of mouth. We're trusted, a lot of repeat customers. It's a great feeling when a customer will come in the door and they've not called to set up an appointment, and they're like, we're here, we know we need a transmission. When can you get it back to us? Or just a lot of good feedback from the people in the community. So I kind of look at it from two different angles. Success for myself personally, I'm very happy with what I do, very extremely happy. And the shop is doing well, even through all this crazy COVID stuff. I feel very fortunate that we've been able to remain at work and that I have a crew that still wanted to work.
Mhm.
But there's always room to do more and be more successful. So we'll keep plugging away here.
Like that definition.
Yeah, great answers. Rebecca, would you like to ask each of our guests our final question?
The final question, of course, is should anyone want to reach out and learn more about Milex, Mr. Transmission, what's the best way for folks to do that?
Well, I know, I don't know if you're referring to like contacting the home office and going that direction, working with Pete Baldine and the people in Chicago, who I know are, they're wonderful people to work with, very helpful, full of information. And I'm always here if anybody who's ever interested in buying a franchise, I'm always here to help people answer questions and be supportive.
Thanks, Susan.
Oh, yes.
So wonderful. So we'll have that information in our show notes, how to get hold of Pete Baldine. And Susan, thank you for opening up to have folks reach out to you directly. Perfect. So ladies, we so appreciate your time. We appreciate you going through the learning curve with the sound and the visuals and that. No, it's
Just
not.
a little challenging.
Yeah.
Just a little.
But we got it done. So thank you both so much for your time. I know you're busy ladies at the end of a long work day. So we appreciate it. And we will talk to you sometime soon, I'm sure.
Thank you.
Great,
So
thank
much.
you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
ladies.
Thank you. The Franchise Woman is a bi-monthly digital magazine that empowers women as they navigate the franchising industry by providing relevant news, tools, advice, and inspiration. We are a resource for women who are seeking to own their own businesses, improve their existing businesses, find creative solutions, and take advantage of franchise opportunities. We feature women in the business who best exemplify our ideals and have something to teach our readers. In addition to our exclusive articles relating to the female entrepreneur, we also feature brands that are geared for women. Women have become the fastest growing sector in business ownership and have become a powerful, influenceable force fueling the economy. The Franchise Woman will give you the news that is relevant to you to help you navigate the path of successful franchise ownership. By women, for women, and about women. We are the Franchise Woman. Join us today at www.thefranchisewoman.com. Welcome back. We are doing Women in the Know. It is our segment where we discuss everything from politics and policy, relationships and marketing, to franchise growth and difficulties between franchisees and franchisors. One topic that we have been on lately is grit. We've been doing a little bit of a series on that. And one of the elements of grit that we're going to talk about today is adaptability and how that impacts success. Rebecca, you want to start us off with your thoughts on that?
Oh, adaptability. You know, they say the older you get, the less flexible you are. And I think there's some reality to it. But as a scientist, having studied this thing called grit for a number of years, adaptability is a huge component of success. And it's vital for us, especially during times of crises, to be able to adapt in our thought processes and our strategies and how we spend our day and reprioritize kind of things. So I thought it was interesting in our segment on Where Passion and Purpose Collide, when we were talking to Susan and Sheri, both franchisees with Mr. Transmission, how they seem to just be ducked to water with change. They went, you know, Susan went from being a flight attendant for American Airlines to running a transmission shop, and then Sheri, coming from the world of the medicine, choosing then to go into running her own transmission shop with her husband, that required huge adaptability and flexibility. But I think the key that I walked away with in talking with them is both of them had a passion for learning. And I think that in and of itself allows us to be more adaptable. When we really are endlessly curious and we want to expand our minds and we enjoy learning, then it's easier to change and to adapt. So they both seem to exhibit that. And I think it's a common thing that we probably see with people that are better at adapting to situations, is this willingness to learn and maybe even master something new.
I think that's so true and so interesting. And while you're talking, I'm thinking about, both women are of similar ages, I think, but they're both at different stages of franchising in terms of experience. One is a year in, one is 25 years in. And Susan said something about, well, I took the chance when I was much younger. And I'm thinking, my oldest son was the worst for change. He hated change. He didn't want to move. High school was, it was scary. But he's gotten better at it. So I'm trying to decide, do you think that people are more or less adaptable when they're younger or older? Is there a trend there, or is it individual?
You know what? I think you're probably right. It's probably more individual. There's no doubt. I mean, there's a reason that we stereotype people and say older people are less flexible. Mm-hmm. But I think you're right. I think the young people can be just as equally inflexible and lack adaptability as older people. I think it really, maybe it is more of an attitude, a mental place.
Yeah,
right.
A personality trait. You've got the daredevils, and you've got the conservative people who don't want to try anything new. And I think that that probably runs across the gamut. But I like you're pointing out the passion for learning, because I do think this is one of the common things you see in successful people in franchising is the passion for learning, but also the passion for self-actualization and constant improvement in self. I mean, so many people that we interview talk about reading self-improvement books, going to conferences to learn more. They don't want to stagnate. And so that trait alone would encourage you to be more adaptable, because you don't want to stay in the same place all the time.
Yeah, and Susan Trumble actually hit just that. She says, I'm successful, I am at peace, I'm respected in my community, I love what I do, but there's always room to learn something new, and there's always another goal that she's going after. And of course, to do that requires additional skills and flexing certain muscles that we haven't flexed before. So it's a kind of this, and we talked about this in Grit, it's this wonderful balance of willingness to adapt because I'm curious and I want to learn, but also having a certain drive that says, I haven't arrived yet. I haven't arrived yet. Heather Hudson talked about that in our last session also, always wanting to do a little bit better, which requires oftentimes pushing ourselves out of our comfort zone, either learning something new, doing something different. It requires that.
Well, it does. And I think I've mentioned this before, the best advice somebody ever gave me was dream bigger. You sometimes get singularly focused on one thing and how you're going to follow this one path that you've laid out for yourself. And someone says, well, just dream bigger. I mean, why are you limiting yourself to that? And having that in you, I mean, I think about that a lot. Most days I think about that, I think, because if you think something's going to end here, or we're going to accomplish this there, then what's the bigger dream? And I think that being conscious of that and not being limiting to yourself. You can get we all get in ruts, we all get stuck, we all have stagnant periods, but to have an overarching theme of dream bigger, kind of pushes you into that need to adapt as well.
It sure does. We're so smart.
We say that every week.
We're just so smart.
And we need other people to say it.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Well, we do need to wrap up this portion of Women in the Know. Join us again next week as we dive deep in some other fabulous topics.
Yeah, and we'll tell you how much we know about something else, right? We'll figure it out. We'll solve the problems in 5 minutes.
Chop, chop.
Chop, chop. All right. We'll be back next time.
What do you think is the #1 challenge for franchisors? You got it, getting the right fit franchisee. And as you know, poor fit franchisees are often poor performers. Poor fit franchisees cost more to train and support. Poor fit franchisees are rarely satisfied or compliant, which can lead to validation issues. Not a good place to be. But now there is a solution. Zoracle Profile's scientific spot-on match program. Working with top broker groups in franchising, Zoracle has created a platform that scientifically matches the broker's candidate to the right fit franchise brand. Spot On Match predicts the compatibility, performance, and viability of a prospective franchisee. Spot On Match gives the franchise development team a data-driven and scientific approach to selling franchises. This is how it works. Zoracle works with each franchisor to establish their top performer blueprint. This research assesses current franchisees to determine the key psychographic indicators that separate high performers from mid to low performing franchisees. The final result of the research is the brand's Eclipse report, which compares prospective franchisees to a franchise system's high performers. Finally, brokers are running a spot-on profile on each of their franchise prospects. These profiles are then scientifically bumped up against the franchisor's high performer algorithms, and the match process begins. Dashboards are built for the franchisor and the broker to make sure the process is smooth and trackable. Right fit matches instantly. Find out how you can be a spot-on match member. Save time. Stop guessing. Start matching. Call Zoracle Profiles.
Welcome to Ask Beck and Liz, where no topic is off limits. We want to answer your questions about business, life, and everything in between. So, Elizabeth, the topic today, the question today is, how do you cope when you are having trouble adapting?
Well, I can use this week's thorn, which was about having to tell my son that he has to go to virtual school to start the school year off, as an example of this. And basically what advice I gave to him, which was not only do you have to find the good things going forward, but when you're trying to adapt, I find that the more scheduled you are and the more structured you are, the less intimidating change feels. So if I'm doing something new or challenging or shifting out of my comfort zone, a lot of times I'm more rigid with the calendar. I have more lists of things to do because I don't know how long they're going to take, or I don't know exactly what I'm doing. So for me, I think structuring the things that I'm adapting to helps me feel more confident in trying to accomplish them.
What great advice. So it makes you feel more in control, even though it seems like the world is out of control.
Exactly. I grip that control harder and harder until I feel comfortable, and then I can let it go.
Take the reins.
Yeah.
Yeah. Make it a list.
Well, I'm going to have to do something I don't know how to do. You believe me, there's going to be a list involved.
Yeah. I got to make a list. I got to control the world through lists. I use a highlighter to mark them off.
Exactly. Yeah, and then I'm going to take Renee Israel's advice from her episode, and I'm going to put a success jar on my desk.
I love that suggestion that she made.
I have not done it yet, but I think that's on my list of things to do now.
It has to be a really cool jar. It needs to be one that you can see through and watch it to sort of fill up.
Have you seen those hurricane glasses from New Orleans?
Yeah.
I think that would be a fun one. I don't have one, but I want.
And boom, done.
That would be a pretty cool jar with pretty little paper.
Yeah. Well, I'm less and less open to change as time has gone on. And I do find I procrastinate on decisions that need to be made or whatever. So when I feel stuck and I know it's time to adapt, it's time to do something different, then what I do is I take a huge risk. Okay, now it may not be in the area that I need to be making a decision around or need to change, right? So what I do is I will step outside. So that might be I jump out of an airplane with a parachute, right? Just something that says I can do that. So I will take a risk. I'll take a dance lesson and I have 2 left feet, right? But I'll take a huge risk of some sort. So it kind of pushes me outside of my comfort zone, and it builds my confidence that says, shoot, if I can do that, then this little decision that I'm supposed to be making over here that I am unwilling to do because I don't want change, right? Then all of a sudden that doesn't seem so big. Now, I always make sure the areas that I take a risk in are going to have a certain level of fun to them, right?
I hope so. They better be fun if it's a big risk, like jumping out of an airplane with a parachute. Have you ever done that, by the way?
I have.
Really?
I have. Yes, I did.
To avoid another decision?
So at that time, actually, yes, it was around that.
You have lived this advice. I'm so excited to hear this.
Yeah, you can't preach it if you don't do it.
Clearly.
Yeah, I was actually living in Mexico, and I had a software developer at that time, and it was just everything went sideways. I mean, it was just a bad situation. He pirated my software and was selling it in another country, and I needed to handle and make a decision. I wasn't making a decision. So a friend of mine was having her 60th birthday, and she says, let's jump out of a plane together.
You said, okay.
I'm in it. So we went down to Brownfield here in San Diego County. And somehow after jumping out of an airplane, it seemed so much easier to make this little decision over here. And I could tell you other kind of goofy stories, but that's how I do it. I'm not saying this is right for everyone, but take a risk. So take a risk that you normally wouldn't do. Have it associated to a little bit of fun. It pushes you out of your comfort zone. And then the areas that you're being stubborn in and willful in and inflexible in and you're not adapting, all of a sudden that seems like nothing.
So it turns out we're completely opposite on this.
Mine is lose
you
control.
Just throw caution to the wind and I hold on as tight as I can.
Yep.
I wonder which is the more effective tool.
I think it depends on the individual. This is why we do these shows, right? Yeah. Because you and I are very different in 1,000 different ways, right? But we get to the same result.
Yeah.
Right?
And I find it so interesting. I don't know that I would have guessed that you jumped out of an airplane before.
Or go sing karaoke, right? I'm a horrible singer. You don't want to hear me sing. So then it was gather some friends and sing at the top of your lungs. After you do that, nothing else is scary.
No risk is so large.
No.
That is too funny. Because I do think that thought, like when I'm working out and I'm hating it, I'll think I can do anything for 2 minutes. If this is 2 minutes of this particular exercise, I can do anything for 2 minutes. Exactly. I think that's more of a competition within myself than a risk. But it's a similar thought process. Like, well, if you can do that for 2 minutes, then you can get through the rest of this 30-minute workout or whatever it is.
So it's still you taking control for 2 minutes.
It is. Thanks for pointing that out. I'm still control freaky about it.
You're still control. Even for 2 minutes, you're in control.
Well, what crazy thing are you going to do this week?
I'm going to start looking for more blessings, right? I think that's my number one goal this week is to do a better job counting my blessings because I am very blessed.
I think that's a good one for both of us because I have focused more on the thorns than the roses this week.
Mhm.
So maybe
Yeah.
that will help get us over hump day and through the rest of the week.
Woohoo. Yeah. All right, Miss Elizabeth, and everybody listening, thank you for joining us today, where passion and purpose collide, profits are made, and relationships are forged. This is Beck and Liz signing off and wishing you another purpose-filled and profitable week.